We'll get going. Right, let's go for it.
Cool. All right, team. Round two, we had a few technical issues. Seems to be all right now. To kind of talk you through what we're doing tonight, Ross asked me just to do a wee run through of kind of drinks you can make at home. I wanted to make sure that it was kind of not going to be breaking the bank, that you could sort of do it with stuff that maybe needs used up. Essentially give you a few tools of things that you can make to make drinks making at home a bit more fun. So we kind of will go through a few different techniques, and then at the end of it we'll all try and make a drink together, although we're recording this a little bit before you'll all be doing it. I'll hopefully do it at a pace. Ross is there armed and ready in his flat with all the things I told him to buy. So hopefully we can see how we get on with that. Yeah, so anyway, I think we're in a position at the moment where rather than me just sitting here and making you a bunch of drinks, I wanted to do a few different bits and pieces. Like I said, we've got loads of kit that we'd usually use in the bar, but there's like perfectly adequate replacements for things at home. A few examples, we'd use like a mixing jug and bar spoon for stirred drinks like old fashions, Negronis, etc. At home, I tend to use a normal jug, and a normal spoon works just as well. In place of our cocktail tins, we can use something like, I'll just use like an old milk bottle, hand over the top, pack some ice in there, same effect. For things like measures, anything that you've got that's kind of, you're able to do around about, you know, like 1 measure's worth of drinks. So whether it's like a shot glass or even like a whiskey tumbler, some people might have measuring spoons, or even just normal spoons. You can get the mils that like a teaspoon, a tablespoon, etc. is on the old World Wide Web. So you can just use that in its place. And with drinks, it's more about kind of doing a ratio rather than necessarily needing exact measurements. So when we did the first run of this, I was just making a wee drink, just to kind of highlight the simplicity of how tasty and simple things can be. Basically, it was just one and a bit parts of Campari, so 1.5 fluid ounces of Campari, and then 4 fluid ounces of fresh orange juice. I just use a stick blender with that. Again, rather than me shaking drinks at home, I usually chuck a couple of ice cubes, maybe a bit more, into a wee tin or jug, and then give it a whirl with that. Breaks down the ice, gives it that wee bit of dilution, and then it gives you a nice wee fluffy texture as well. So this drink is called the Garibaldi. It's the #1 selling drink at the #1 bar in the world at the moment, which is a place in New York called Dante, which I believe Ross is at last month. Keeping quiet on it now, but yeah, he was in my ear a wee bit about that. He's been to more of my favourite bars than I'd care to share with you, that I don't think I'll ever get to. But with what we're doing,
I'll take you one day. I'll take you on a big mandate.
That'd be lovely. I make enough hints, man, so surprised it's not happened already, you know. So with that, as you can see, like we've got a really nicely coloured, nicely textured, simple 2-part drink. With making drinks at home, everything's in the kind of preparation of it. So like if you're having folk round for dinner, I'd hope that you wouldn't start cooking when everyone's arriving. That sort of gives me the fear a wee bit, and I think it's the same for drinks. Sometimes like you can think, oh, we'll just make stuff when folk get round, but if you've got all the preparation done in advance, it means that you can enjoy your company a bit more. And even if it's just like you or the two of you sitting in watching the telly, if you're wanting nice drinks, you can make them all up beforehand. And then it means that rather than you being back and forth to the fridge or freezer or doing whatever and picking everything out each time, you can just do it kind of in the winner and batch it. So most of the bars, or the good cocktail bars around the world, they'll batch all their drinks now. We would have our whole cocktail menu at the gate, for example, that will be batched. We usually have 2 kind of big batching days over the course of a week, but means that everything's kind of grabbable from where you're standing and you can keep interacting with the customer. And then in a sense of doing it at home, if you want to batch your drinks in advance, it means that rather than you making them up, you can just go and grab the cocktail out of the fridge like you would a bottle of wine and top everyone up. So it's just a nice wee thing to do. So we'll use our little trusty milk bottle and our jug. And with batching drinks, what you're going to do is dilute it as well. So I'm just going to make like a really simple daiquiri here. So 120 mils of white rum. Want to do this is going to be for 2 drinks, sorry. So 60 mils. Going to do 40 of lime, and then 20 of sugar syrup. So I've just made a wee guava syrup here. I'll show you how to make that further into this video. I feel like I should be saying hit the like and subscribe button below. Always wanted the YouTube channel.
Now's your start.
I'd be literally the worst.
I would update your camera, but the skills are there.
So with that whole setup, you can see that sugar syrup is quite viscous. So I'm just going to stir that through the whole mixture. But we've got, so essentially for both drinks, we've got 60 times 2 for the rum, so 120 mils. We've got 20 times 2 for the lime juice, so another 40, so that's 160 mils altogether. And then we've got 20 mils of sugar for both drinks, so that's 60, 120, 160, 180 mils of liquid in there. So usually for diluting, when I'm batching drinks, we'll just add 10% of that. So just under 20 mils, 180 mils. And that is kind of in place of your shaking, which is going to, when you shake a drink, a little bit of ice is going to break off, it's going to dilute it, it's going to chill it. Diluting it like that just acts as a kind of similar thing, and then we'll just chuck that straight in the fridge and we can drink that later on. So, like I said, just to kind of go over batching again, it's something that you'll do in the bar, something that's really good to do at home, especially when you're hosting people. You can make all your syrups up, etc. beforehand, and then literally in like 5 or 6 old wine bottles, you can batch 4 or 5, 6, whatever, different cocktails, 6 litres of the same one, whatever you want to do. And that means when you've got folk coming in, you're literally just pouring them beautiful, consistent, ice cold drinks as soon as they arrive and right through the night. So batching is kind of a good place to start in terms of like what we do in the bar, and then transferable to what you can do at home. Next thing I've got, I thought it was worth mentioning, again for home drinking, like you don't want it to just be a total haphazard. And one of our biggest things in the bar, in most of the bars I've worked at actually, is like people commenting on the big ice cubes that we do. Now, worked in places that we hand carve it all, and also up until now, like so many of the ice companies do, they've cut the ice for us, so we just buy that in. But if you're making it at home, obviously, like super simple to do. I just use a takeaway tub, so one that's maybe about that deep, that wide. That'll get you 6 like beautiful big blocks. I'd always suggest boiling the kettle first. Just it gives you a bit more of a clear freeze when it happens. Boil the kettle straight into an open takeaway container, pop that in the freezer, and you're looking at about 7-8 hours, and you've got a beautiful big block of ice that, if you use a bread knife or kind of hack it with a carving knife, you can break that down into like really nice workable pieces, but both aesthetically pleasing, but also, especially if you're kind of, I don't know if you like ice with your whiskey, or you drink like kind of boozy stirred down drinks, Negronis or old fashions, rather than you having like wee chips of ice like I've got here. So if you see like normal ice cubes, they'll melt a lot more quickly than the big block. So especially at home, when you can do it really easily and you're not needing to cultivate masses of beautiful big ice blocks, you can literally, if you know that you're going to be in the house drinking, freeze a tub on Friday when you go away to work. When you come back, you'll have a nice big block, and then you can use that for your drinks in the evening. And it just means that rather than you taking the first 2 sips of your drink and then like it being delicious to begin with and then the drink being over diluted, it means that your drink stays better for longer. So nice wee tip, especially because it costs nothing to do. You can treat yourself to a takeaway. So pretty much win-win situation. And like I say, it adds a kind of, like if you're hosting as well, you've got a nice big ice that didn't cost you much, that makes like for a nice wee talking point when people come round. Thing 3, point 3, item 3, sugar syrup. So kind of, it's the same as like, think about a kitchen without salt and pepper. It's the same thing. Like I think of like citrus and sugars as your seasoning for drinks. Sugar really gives you like a nice bit of weight, and what you're looking for in every drink that you make, whether it's got sweet or sour elements, whether it's boozy and it's got bitter parts to it, all you're looking for is balance. You'll have all had drinks that are like, you know, they could have been delicious, but they're slightly unbalanced, whether that's just a little bit too boozy, whether it's too sweet, too sour, whatever it is, it kind of takes away from that. Now, if you've got a good starting point, that's great, which is why we're going to do a drink that we'll do at the end. But if you're starting with the spirit and you're able to sweeten it and also make it sour, you're always going to, if you do it to the right ratio, you're going to bring out the best in the booze, essentially. So we always have, I'll give you an example of the gate. We always have a raspberry syrup to hand. We have a straight up white sugar syrup. We've got a demerara. We've got an apple cordial, which is just an apple syrup made in the way that we'll make these. And then we add malic acid. All of these things do use pineapple syrup. It just means that with very minimal effort and expense, you can really take drinks in different directions. So I usually just use this wee saucepan if I'm making them at home. Basically means that you can make tiny wee quantities and you're not throwing stuff away. And the ratio to use for making sugar syrup is, or the ratio that I use is 2 parts sugar to 1 part liquid. So if you keep that in your head, basically whatever you're using, if you're doing it in this quantity, it's going to be 2 parts of sugar in that, 1, 2, and then 1 part hot water in that 1. If you're doing big jugs of it, you do 2 jugs of that of sugar, 1 jug of water. So to make the most basic sugar syrup is usually a white castor sugar. You do 2 parts of that to 1 part boiling water. Just stir that down till it dissolves. I almost always put it on a really low heat on the hob. Just makes your life a bit easier. Otherwise you're stirring for quite a while. but just be careful not to put the heat up too much. You don't want to burn that sugar, because you'll essentially then get a lot more kind of dirty notes within your drink, which you don't want. So with this one, we've just done exactly the same, but I've used brown sugar for that. General rule of thumb, if you're using white spirits or unaged or young spirits, I usually tend to use a white sugar. And then if I'm using anything that's been in a barrel in wood for any period of time, you know, majority of whiskies, whether that's Irish, American, Scotch, aged rums, aged tequilas, etc. I usually use a light brown or Demerara sugar. If you're going kind of heavier into that, like, you'll get a lot more treacly, molassesy notes off darker brown sugar. So just be aware that you'll get more taste coming the darker the sugar gets. So you might want to just be wary of how that's used. If you're using like really nice, expensive booze, you don't want it just to taste of like treacle or sort of licorice, you know. Another super simple trick with the guava one, this is like total ghetto syrup, but I just use Rubicon guava, 1 part of that and 2 parts white sugar. You've got a really tasty, fruity option to add to your drink. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. That's how I'd use pressed pineapple juice, pressed apple juice. Fresh juices are great, but also these like cartoned from concentrates can make some pretty tasty sugar syrups, and again, they're pretty cheap and cheerful, and because they've got some bad shit in them, they taste really, really good. So that's us kind of gone through our sugar syrups, which we will use in our drinks at the end of the show. Can I call this a show, Ross?
You can call this a show.
Are you enjoying the show so far?
I'm sitting staring at your face. It couldn't be more enjoyable for me.
Wonderful. So last thing before we kind of go into making drinks, and again, to me, making drinks at home is kind of like being resourceful and maybe using stuff that might have been sitting about for a while or that you've not got around to using. Makes it a wee bit more fun. So you can do like wee kind of fermentations with like just using sugar and fruit. I thought a nice way of showing you a little simple alternative to citrus was to make a wee raspberry shrub. So essentially, if we went to our sugar syrup ratio, which was 2 parts sugar to 1 part liquid, whatever you choose to use, for a shrub, and it'll vary from kind of a lot of cooking shrubs are much heavier on vinegar, but for my shrub recipe, I use 1 part fruit. So say we're using 100 grams of raspberries for this one, 1 part sugar, so I just use caster sugar to keep it nice and bright, and then 0.5 parts, so that would be 50 grams of vinegar, in this case red wine vinegar. So my raspberries were just about to turn. I think they went out of date yesterday or the day before, so what I did with them was just pop them. You can do it by weight, so just like we kitchen scales or like we've been doing before, just using a vessel that you can get roughly those ratios out. But I just chucked the raspberries in to a little jug, same amount of sugar, give that a stir, and the sugar starts to pull all the juice and the flavour out of the raspberries. Give that a stir through, and then just add in the 50 grams, 50 mils of red wine vinegar. But any, like, you know, apple and raspberry is a really nice combo. So apple vinegar, you can use white wine vinegar, you can use balsamic. That goes really well if you're doing a strawberry shrub. Just have a wee play around with it, and it just means that rather than me chucking out a punnet of raspberries today, I've made something that will now last another 2 weeks. That just the shrub itself in a glass of ice with soda water is delicious, or it can be used as a cocktail ingredient. So just bear that in mind, and any questions at all, just email me or give Ross a shout and get my details, and I can give you some more explanation on that. So we run down of hopefully the skills, and then this means that like if we're still on lockdown next week, we can start to really build from this. You can maybe make some ingredients at home, and then we can start to make more complex drinks. But essentially, brief kind of yeah. What am I looking for? Revision.
Synopsis.
Synopsis. That's the one. Brief synopsis of what we've gone through already. Batch and drinks, so everything in the preparation just makes drinking a lot more fun. You know, if you had to make your own beer every time you wanted a beer from the fridge, you probably wouldn't drink that much beer. So same with cocktails, do it all beforehand. That means when you sat down to watch the telly, watch a film, have your dinner, you're not mincing about in the kitchen and having to go and spend time. It's all done, it's all ready, it's all there. Batch and drinks, just remember when you are doing that, because we're not shaking or stirring, just to add that 10% of dilution of the overall liquid. For the sugar syrups, 2 to 1, 2 parts sugar, 1 part liquid, over a low heat usually, just to break it down a bit quicker. And you can do literally whatever you want, mess around with the sugars, mess around with the liquid that's going into that, and it gives you like a big arsenal of weaponry that you can use with any type of booze. Big ice, sorry I missed that one. Big blocks, kettle, boil, water, takeaway tub, freezer, 8 hours. Delicious big blocks of ice that keep your drink colder for longer with less dilution. So if you've gone to the time to actually make some nice drinks and then you chuck shitty like crushed ice in it or something, they're going to taste pretty bad pretty quickly, but that big ice will allow you to have a taste of your drink for longer. Citrus alternatives, vinegars, like we've done with the shrub, 1 to 1.5 is the ratio for the shrub. Again, soft fruits, brilliant, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. If stuff's going off, just use the sugar and the vinegar. You're essentially just pickling fruit, which is why it's kind of quite an old preservation technique, to make sure you're not just chucking out loads of fresh produce. If you're making drinks at home a lot as well, would recommend maybe buying malic acid or ascorbic acid if you're not wanting to get fresh fruit each time. If you don't want to think you'll go through that many lemons or limes, we use them in the bar a lot. So essentially you'll get a wee pot of it, and if you do a wee Google, you'll come up with like acid blends that will give you the same representation of like a lemon or a lime. Much more shelf stable. Don't quite have the mouthfeel, but it means that you're not buying fresh fruit, and those things last for months and months, if not years. So nice wee thing to mess around with. And again, like bitters, there's some peach bitters there, Angostura. Kind of pricey if you're going to use them once and not use them again, but things like that to have at home if you're making a lot of drinks at home, really worthwhile having, because they just add a nice wee dimension to anything that you're making. So to finish off, we're just going to start with a sour, which is essentially like there's 7 families of cocktails historically, and to me the sour is kind of like the best starting point for learning like to make a blueprint of different drinks. So the likes of, I mentioned a daiquiri, a margarita, a cosmopolitan, a mojito even kind of falls into the sour category because it's a daiquiri with added mint and soda. So from those 3 kind of initial ingredients in a sour of booze, sweet and sour, you can start to make up a whole array of different things. So for me today, I'm going to make a daiquiri to kind of my spec, which again, I think I like things slightly on the sour side, but if you like things slightly sweeter, then play around with that. It just means that for every palate that you're making to, like, I guess the easiest things to make to what you like to drink, but if you've got loads of people coming around that you think don't have the same taste as you, probably make drinks to a common standard. If you like really sour, maybe don't do that, because not many people like really, really sour. And then because you'll have the citrus and sweetener on hand, you can change things accordingly. Okay, so I usually make my daiquiris to this spec here. So 60 rum, 20 lime, 10 sugar. If you do like margaritas, your sweet is usually Cointreau. Some people add in additional sugar to that, and it's usually like 50 mils of tequila, 25 of Cointreau, and then 12.5 of lime juice. So you've got the 3 element done in a slightly different ratio with a different style of booze in there. And if you just stick with that, you can't really go too far wrong. So we'll do that in here, actually. So we'll do that in the wee stirring glass. We'll do 60 mils of rum. A bit extra. Oh, it's Saturday.
I'm going to join in here.
What's that?
So I'm going to join in with you. I'm going to figure out how to make this as well. You keep going.
Wonderful. So have you got your rum in there?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to do 20 mils of lime juice. Good.
Yep.
And then 10 mils of that Demerara sugar that I was talking about.
So 60 rum, lime juice.
20 lime juice, and then 10 of sugar syrup, maybe a little bit more.
Will lemon juice work just as well?
What's that?
Will lemon juice work just as well?
Yeah, why not, eh?
It's happening.
She just said that earlier, actually. So if you're juicing at home, Mexican elbow, like £7. If you're doing a lot of juicing, but obviously just you can use the side of whatever you're squeezing into, half the limes, and just give them a nice hard squeeze. You can use one of the wee, what do you call it, or the handheld scudgy bits, or a fork, and just get in amongst it and squeeze it from the other side. So don't worry if you've not got something to squeeze citrus with. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You all up to speed, Ross?
Now we'll get 10 grams of Demerara sugar.
Yeah.
I'm just about up to speed. 2 seconds. Just everywhere. It's always going to happen, wasn't it? 8, 9 grams. 10 grams. So 10 grams, and then give it a big stir.
Yeah, give it a big stir to get that sugar through. If you're just using like fresh sugar rather than syrup, it'll take a wee bit longer. So maybe add in another wee teaspoon of sugar just to sweeten it up a wee bit.
Add another teaspoon of sugar.
Just, well, have a wee taste of it, because obviously the sugar will take a bit longer to dilute if it's not in syrup form, you know.
Yep. What was that first drink you made?
The Garibaldi.
That was a Garibaldi, yeah. You enjoying it?
Yeah, it's delicious. So I don't know if I went through that. That's literally 1.5 fluid ounces of Campari, 4 fluid ounces of pressed orange juice, and then we'll use this again because I didn't get to show you my wee handheld blender, but any sort of juicer at home with fresh juice obviously gives it a really nice textured thing. If you've not got a shaker, if you're also doing this at home, you can give that all a wee stir in some sort of jug, which will dilute it. So just stir that down.
We're winning. We're winning.
What's that?
I said we're winning.
And then with that, you can also add in a couple of cubes of ice if you don't want to just stir it, and we'll do what we did with this guy in the first instance, was just blast it with your blender. How are you getting on, Ross?
Yeah, I've just put the ice in, and I'm looking for the food processor. I don't know what it is. Where's the newspaper? Sorry, get my helper on the couch, being useless. Right, so in this I've got sugar, I've got the rum, I've got the lime juice, the lemon juice, I've got the demerara sugar, and I've got the ice.
You'll just give it a blast, mate.
How many ice cubes should I have in it?
Well, I usually, like, if you're serving it up, like, just put a couple in to give it cold and dilution. But if you want it like one that you'd get on holiday, put like a good handful of ice in, and it'll be more like a sort of frothy bastard, you know.
Frothy bastard. It's been nutribulated, sorry for that sound.
That's all right. Yeah, so, I mean, that's that colour because we've used a kind of young but aged rum, so it's seen a bit of time in wood. Just with rum, 5-year-old, it's not like Scottish whisky law. With Scotch, the age statement is the youngest whisky in that bottle. So if you've got an 8-year-old whisky there can't be any whisky in there that's younger than it. That doesn't apply for rum. So that says Angostura 5 on it. There might be a wee, teaspoonful of 5-year-old rum in there. The rest might be 2 or 3-year-old rum. It's quite lax on the whole kind of age statement side of it. Not to say that like age is everything, but just if you're kind of looking at rums, it's a lot less legislated. So you usually get really nice mid-range rums where you don't have to drop loads of cash, whereas you could end up spending loads of money on like a 25-year-old rum that is predominantly 7-year-old rum. So just a wee heads up.
That's quite delightful.
Do you like it?
Yeah, it's good.
Good. So yeah, super simple. Daiquiris are like a really nice place to start. First drink or first cocktail I was ever taught to make was a Maduri sour. and my bar manager just got me to use it. So same, got Maduri, got sugar syrup, got lime juice, and he was like, just keep adding those two things to the Maduri until it tastes fucking delicious. And I didn't think that was possible, but it did. It tasted delicious by the end of it. So literally anything, obviously, with something like that, Maduri is really sweet, so you need less sugar, more citrus. With straight spirits, you're kind of looking at just balancing the sweet and citrus out. But that gives you a base to like sub in what your favourite spirit is. If you don't like rum, use whiskey. I've just split an egg here as well, so like that's some egg white there. If you're wanting extra texture in your drink, just give it, split the yolk out of an egg, keep that for something else. Use the whites of one egg, chuck that in, give it a whisk with a fork, or use your wee blender and use exactly the same ratio, and you've got like a nice frothy sour as opposed to like a more straight up one. And then obviously don't forget that you made drinks before these. That's your 2 daiquiris that were batched and put in the fridge.
Smooth.
So yeah, hopefully there are some nice tools for making drinks at home. Started off super simple, like I say. If you've got any questions, let Ross know, or Ross will let me know, and he'll channel you directly through to me. Mess around with it. There's not that far that you can go wrong. Like when you're following a food recipe, if you know that most of the stuff that's going into something tastes pretty good, don't worry too much about exact mils here and that there. Just like be confident with it. Make things that you think will taste nice to begin with, and then you can get more experimental. With that last one we made there, if you take the citrus out of that and use the 60 mils of rum and the 10 mils of sugar, you've got a really nice base for like a rum old fashioned. So take the citrus out, stir it down, and then if you've got bitters or something to add in, even just like giving it a wee spritz of an orange peel, then you've got a really simple, tasty rum old fashioned, just by subbing out citrus and putting in a bitter element instead, you know. So use these things as a blueprint. Any questions, let me know. Hope everyone's doing all right. I know it's pretty weird at the moment, but it'll be good to see you all and train with you again. And in the meantime, if we can make drinks together, then I'm more than happy to bring that. Anything else, Ross?
That is all good. I'll hit the stop button on the recording. But yeah, thanks very much. We'll chat after I hit the recording. But yeah, thanks very much. That was awesome. I'm sure a lot of people will have a lot of fun with that at home tonight, and hopefully throughout the rest of the week. And then yeah, hopefully if you're game to build upon it, then hopefully we can do that and start creating some cool stuff.
100%.